A new paradigm for social development, the need for a new paradigm. Civilizational transitions represent radical transformations in humanity's understanding of the driving forces, organization, functioning, and governance of society. Historically, humanity has passed through three major paradigms: polytheism, monotheism, and secular society, corresponding respectively to the ancient world, feudalism, and capitalism. Today, as a result of the exponential growth of science and technology, humanity is once again undergoing profound civilizational transformation. This transition demands a fundamentally new vision of social development, one adequate to the unprecedented level of knowledge, complexity, and interdependence that characterizes contemporary civilization. Driving force of development and the laws of social evolution. Human history can be understood as the unfolding interaction between two fundamental forces: the growth of knowledge generated by human reason and the objective laws that shape social structures. Across millennia, these forces have intertwined to produce successive civilizational spirals: slavery, feudalism, and capitalism, each defined by a dominant organizing principle, yet all ultimately propelled by expanding human understanding. The emerging paradigm of the 21st century signals a profound transformation, a shift from hierarchical to network organization, from competitive individualism to collaborative intelligence, and from centralized governance to distributed coordination. This transformation marks a transition toward a new cultural foundation, economic organization, and form of governance. The central thesis of this paradigm is that the true driving force of history is not religion, economics, or politics, but the growth of knowledge. In earlier epochs, due to limited understanding of social processes, humanity perceived religion or economics as dominant forces. Yet these were not fundamental causes. They were expressions of the prevailing level of knowledge. As knowledge expands, it reshapes societal values, aspirations, and possibilities, requiring new forms of organization capable of sustaining increased complexity. In the conditions of the information society, it becomes increasingly evident that knowledge itself is a primary engine of social evolution. Dialectics and the laws of social development. The fundamental contradiction in all civilizational transitions lies between the changes imposed by expanding knowledge and the rigidity of existing social structures, between enriched content and outdated form. The resolution of this contradiction unfolds through several objective laws of development, four of which are fundamental. First law: ideas move the world. Every great historical transformation, from the agricultural revolution to the Enlightenment, from industrialization to the digital age, has been preceded by a leap in knowledge that expanded the limits of what society could imagine and achieve. Second law: the complexity of society determines its structure. As societies become more complex, they require increasingly sophisticated organizational forms. The hierarchical structures of feudalism could not sustain industrial capitalism. Similarly, the hierarchical nation-state and corporate pyramid struggle to manage the complexity of a global, interconnected, knowledge-driven civilization. Third law: culture materializes into civilization. This law governs the interaction between the three core subsystems of society: culture, public consciousness, economy, and governance. When a civilization's cultural foundations become exhausted, when its values no longer correspond to societal complexity, it enters into decline. Yet decline is generative. A dying civilization gives birth to a new culture. Today's global turbulence, political fragmentation, economic inequality, and institutional paralysis signals not merely a crisis of capitalism but a deeper civilizational transition. The culture of competitive individualism, scarcity-based economics, and hierarchical governance no longer corresponds to a world defined by knowledge abundance, planetary interdependence, and exponential complexity. Fourth law: the structuring factor determines the direction of social evolution. When the dominant structural force changes, society moves to a new turn of the evolutionary spiral. In slave societies, structure was determined by physical labor. In feudalism, by land ownership and hereditary hierarchy. In capitalism, by capital and markets. Today, the structuring factor is shifting from capital to knowledge. This transition is systemic, not ideological. Complex systems cannot be governed hierarchically. They require distributed intelligence, adaptive coordination, and collective decision-making. From hierarchy to network society, the exponential growth of knowledge has transformed society into a complex adaptive system. All such systems, biological, ecological, technological, are organized as networks. Hierarchies are too rigid, slow, and centralize to process the volume and velocity of information that define modern civilization. Consequently, the transition to a network society is not optional, it is an evolutionary necessity. The network society is inherently collaborative. It is based on shared knowledge, distributed decision-making, collective intelligence, voluntary participation, and open systems. This emerging paradigm replaces pyramids with networks and competition with cooperation, forming the structural foundation of collaborative civilization. Geopolitics and civilizational transition. The fundamental failure of contemporary geopolitics lies in its inability to recognize the objective laws of social evolution. Political elites continue to operate under the illusion that subjective factor can override structural realities. Yet during periods of civilizational transition, the rules themselves change, rendering traditional power games obsolete. Therefore, the chessboard metaphor of geopolitics applies only during periods of incremental development. In transitional phases, social laws redefine not only strategies but also players. The world today is governed by institutions shaped for a declining paradigm, while the future belongs to new forms of intelligence, organization, and cooperation. Wikipedia is the first prototype of collaborative society. Among today's global networks, most remain embedded within capitalist logic and profit-driven structures. One major exception is Wikipedia, a global community founded on voluntary collaboration, shared purpose, transparency, and decentralized governance. Wikipedia stands out as the first large-scale demonstration of collaborative civilization principles. It shows that millions can self-organize without hierarchy, expertise can emerge organically, shared knowledge can be produced as a global public good. Wikipedia demonstrates the viability of large-scale, non-hierarchical, collaborative knowledge production. It embodies the principles of the emerging paradigm and represents the first institutional prototype of collaborative civilization. The next evolutionary step for this community is to transform itself from a knowledge repository into a global think tank capable of catalyzing public self-awareness, articulating a civilizational roadmap, developing new governance mechanisms, and coordinating interdisciplinary collaboration. This transformation requires evolving the MediaWiki platform into IntelWiki platform, a subject explored separately. For the Wikipedia community, this is not merely an organizational challenge. It is a civilizational mission to consciously shape the next turn of humanity's evolutionary spiral. In short, the emerging paradigm of social development may be summarized as follows. Knowledge is a primary engine of history. Reason shapes societal content. Objective law structures social form. Culture, economy, and governance co-evolve. Structural transformations determine evolutionary direction. Exponential knowledge growth necessitates network organization. Collaborative society represents the next stage of human development. This paradigm does not negate the achievements of earlier eras. Rather, it integrates them into a higher level of complexity. Capitalism unleashed unprecedented productivity and innovation, yet its competitive logic and hierarchical structures are increasingly incompatible with a knowledge-based civilization. The central task of our time is to consciously transition toward a collaborative, network society, one capable of harnessing collaborative intelligence to address global challenges and realize humanity's shared potential.